Hey everybody, it's me, Andrew. Get out into nature and tune in for yourself. Resonate with the Earth's electromagnetic field via 432 Hertz, the universal frequency. Balance out psychologically and emotionally, and further strengthen your brain and your heart's coherence as well. Get a plant-based diet going for yourselves today and nurture yourself right back into life. We are literally herbivores in our nature. Further balance out your physical body's pH level and to get with alkalinity. Then you can generate some static electricity. Send me some love telepathically. Set attention to your mind and set intention to communicate. That is all there is to telepathy. You are now tuning in to great days. So today I'm going to continue with the unwinding of the kundalini energy and the opening of the DNA, the blossoming of the genetics, the genetic coding, and how this alters perception. Alright, so let's get into this. So in the previous video I was talking of the coiled kundalini energy, which is our sexual energy, our sacred energy, the serpentine energy. Shesha, it's the remaining, which pretty much means within this is genetic mutation that allows us to connect with deeper aspects of who we are, right? So obviously it goes beyond your physical form, your mental form. So the experiential change takes place when you begin to unwind or blossom the serpentine energy, okay, the coiled energy, the kundalini energy. So in everybody we have the coiled kundalini energy. Everybody has kundalini energy because kundalini energy is also the sacred or sexual energy. It's sexual energy, it's sex energy, creative energy, extremely potent, universally potent. So it's coiled at the base of the spine for most people. For all people, it's coiled at the base of the spine, right? And it's found at the muladhara, in between the muladhara or maybe the sacral, in between the first two, somewhere here, or just coiled at the base, right? Which would be right at the muladhara, the first chakra, at the perineum, which is the soft spot between the anus and the sexual organ. So here there's the coiled kundalini energy, and the coiled kundalini energy can be petrified in its coiled state, meaning that when you look at something that has become petrified, it is solidified, it is densified, and it maybe has mineralized, crystallized in different ways depending on what is going through petrification. But the kundalini in its coiled state is in a state of petrification, therefore it's been densified or it's been solidified, it's been materialized, right? Maybe this is a good word for it, because when the kundalini energy is coiled, you keep a very materialized state. Meaning when the kundalini energy is in its coiled state at the very bottom of the chakra system, the energetical system, you are sustaining a densified form, meaning you are within the physical form, the bodily experience. And it also, in its coiled state, is reflecting the DNA. So the DNA in its blossom form is a double helix or double helix structure, and the the DNA can also coil itself up, right? By this, you take the double helix structure and you just crumple it up like a piece of paper, right? It goes from the helice or the helix to a crumpled up piece of paper, or just like a coiled ball of some sort, right? So when the kundalini energy is in its coiled state, there's a lot of the DNA is also reflecting the coiled state, or the unopened state. So then when you're able to begin opening up the kundalini, blossoming the kundalini from the muladhara, or the first chakra, up the spinal cord to the higher chakras, all the way to the sahasrara, or the soft spot, the crown chakra, it blossoms, or it uncoils itself in a double helice, or in a double helix pattern, which is the same pattern as DNA, so you can literally just match it, because it's fractal. Everything is fractal in nature, microcosmic to the macrocosmic. Fractal is mathematics, alright, sacred geometry, which all mathematicians use if they're working with higher math, because it's a simplicity. It simplifies things. So the kundalini energy is coiled at the base of the spine, and it unwinds up the spinal cord, blossoming in a double helix, and it completely changes your experience if it's able to reach the highest chakra of the body, of the physical structure, which is the crown chakra, the sahasrara. And if it reaches this, you definitely are able to have the whole transcendental experience, which is the genetics opening up, right? I was speaking of this, but the whole structure of DNA is completely closed, and it's completely crumpled, it's completely coiled. When your kundalini energy is at the base of the spine, it's not being risen, or it's not being arose, you know, blossomed. And this doesn't allow for the proper amount of resonance to take place, or it doesn't allow for resonance to take place through all aspects of your being. By this I mean there's multiple aspects of your being. You're not just a physical structure, you're not just a physical body, and you're not just a mental body or a mental structure. You're much more. There's much more subtler bodies that you cannot bring into your perception, only due to the fact that most people don't have the kundalini energy blossomed. When the kundalini energy does blossom, a lot comes into your perception, and that's the whole experiential change that takes place. That's the whole transcendental experience. The whole transcendental experience is all that which was not able to be perceived with the coiled kundalini is then perceived. It all comes into perception, and you start to experience things which were out of your perception. They were in the peripheral, they were in the back, but they weren't in your conscious perception. So when the kundalini energy rises up the spine to the crown chakra, all of which you weren't able to perceive or experience is able to be experienced and perceived. Then you easily are able to transcend the body, or even the mind, you know. This is simple. And on the genetic level, on the DNA begins to also blossom from a crumpled state, or a coiled state, a petrified state. It begins to liquefy itself, and then it begins to unwind itself, blossom itself, right? And then it blossoms, and then the experience changes, and you come into a transcendence, right, which is a type of death, because the whole experience of something beyond what you have always had thought you were begins to recede into into a transcendental state, okay, or it begins to ascend. You ascend. That's the whole ascension process. The ascension is the kundalini energy rising up the spine. It's ascending. And the change of experience, the transcendence into higher dimensions or higher realms or planes of being, is the ascension taking place, right? So let me see. The kundalini energy is easily seen as a type of an electromagnetic fluid, right? So since it's a type of fluid, it's a very special type of fluid, because it can shift its it can shift its density, right? It would be like the body, if the body were able to just completely liquefy itself and become a puddle and then rematerialize itself, right? I want to say the kundalini energy has these types of properties, right? So it's a very weird thing, but DNA also has these types of properties, right? So whenever you begin to blossom the DNA and the kundalini starts to rise up the spine, then the whole petrification, the whole materialization, which corresponds to earthly being, begins to subtleize, and it begins to liquefy, or begins to etherealize. See, H2O, or liquid water, is very close in relationship to ether, which is space. So whenever the kundalini comes to blossom, you go from a more dense state, more earthly state, to a more superfluous state, or a more liquidy state. And then this is also reflecting the immense creative flow that comes with the rising of the kundalini as well. The kundalini energy is creative energy. People who are keeping it at the bottom or the base of the spine are in its petrified, coiled state, in its closed state, are only going to be using it for procreation. They're only going to be using it for reproduction, to continue as consciousness living within the cycle of death and rebirth, or life and death, the whole cycle. But it can be transcended the moment that you give that procreational force up, the moment that you disattach from that whole storyline. The coiled kundalini energy can be risen, and as it starts to come into the higher chakras, then you can start to utilize that procreational creative energy to create higher realities, not only for yourself but for other people around you, because it's very contagious. It's a flame, and it ignites other people's who are just within the vicinity, right? So let me see. Once again, the kundalini in its coiled state at the base of the spine is petrified. So this also corresponds to the element of earth, which is the most dense element out of the 5. So it's corresponding to density, it's corresponding to materialization. Whenever you blossom the kundalini energy into its helical pattern, it begins to resonate more with the ether, with space, and that whole process of blossoming and resonance allows for the subtilization of the form to take place. Once that happens, once it becomes subtle enough in its vibratory rate, then you are able to resonate with the space. You're able to resonate with ether. It can go throughout the whole elemental chart, you know, or all the 5 at least. But you're most definitely in the petrified state. You're in the very dense state, and then you go into water. The higher it goes, which then you are quite literally able to reflect the immense creative flow of water, you know, because water is the very fluid element, and it can flow into anything, right? Or it's known for its flow. So beyond water, it goes into ether, which is space, which is superfluous, which is even more flow. It holds an immense flow beyond that of water. And then it goes into void, which is dissolving into nothingness at that state of it, which is statelessness, which that would be it would be a type of death, right? So the kundalini energy, it definitely if it's risen all the way up, you can definitely have a transcendental experience. You can definitely change the perception of life that you currently hold, especially in your more dense states when it's coiled. But that's going to be it for today's video. So I do thank everybody for watching once again. Peace out, one love, and have a great evening.